This weekend was the monthly AT. And in this video, I want to give you my very short, concise meta analysis and give you my top 5 picks for PvP, especially for competitive 5 versus 5 play. The order here is typically how often they appeared. So top 1 would be the most played build in the teams, but it is obviously not always a strength rating because only the whole team composition makes sense together. So with that much said, as always, special shout out to all my supporters on YouTube, Twitch and Patreon that help me keep the lights on. And now, without much further ado, let's jump straight in. And let's start with a big disclaimer at the beginning. This is on EU. I don't actually know how much is it the same on NA, but I know some facts. We will get to that when we get to the most played builds, highest rated builds here. But this is obviously also just a very small proportion of the player base that actually plays those builds in this specific team comps and stuff. So don't copy and paste it perfectly exactly the same in ranked and expect the same results. If you're playing ranked, there are other builds very strong because in competitive 5 versus 5, you have always teammates that you can trust and that you can like communicate with. And then there are some other builds that are completely worthwhile playing while others are not. So keep that in mind. But of course, there will be some overlap with ranked builds, of course, as well. So with that much said, I also want to mention that some build variations obviously exist as well. I just want to show a major part of the build with the traits and the gear setup for every single build that I mention here, but there might be some trait changes, some relic changes, some rune changes, and of course that's up to personal preference. But now let's start with the first pick. Top 5 plays is Power Harbinger with Spear and just Berserker, Centaur Relic, Dolyak Rune, Energy Cleansing Sigils. On the offhand, you run Sword, or you can run Staff if you go for Transfusion. Transfusion is a very strong trait nowadays, even on a power build. You would drop Blood Bank, but this is the general setup. If you want to be more aggressive, you can go for Wicked Corruption instead of the Elixir Protection. That is fine as well. This is the setup. This is a very strong build, side note build. Teamfight build, you can make everything work on this build, especially in ranked. It's really, really strong. I would say this is one that is probably best performing in ranked as well, because you have so much damage, so much sustain. It's really good one-on-one build and just very flexible in what it wants to do. Don't forget, if you play it in ranked and you have to rotate more, I would actually go for something that gives movement speed instead of the Dolyak Rune, but that's just my personal preference. This is how you would play it. Top 4 is Renegade. Renegade setup for bunkering or just general DPS sustained. It's Berserker Amulet, you can run with Secure, Scrapper, Hammer, and Sword Shield, Energy Cleansing, Courage Purging, something like that. Of course, for the traits, you go with Retribution, Invocation, and Renegade. You can drop one of the trait lines to go with Salvation, and you actually get even tankier, but I would say this is the more like mixed aggressive and defensive setup, which is often preferred because if you full bunker, then you don't have any damage anymore. But this is the setup. Sheer color, of course. And yeah, nice bunkery, crazy burst damage as well, but not too crazy overall damage output other than the burst. Before I go to the next build, I want to mention, if you like this video, be sure to leave a like. And if you want to see more content like this, don't forget to subscribe. But now let's talk about the top 3 build. Top 3 build is Healing Tempest. Yes, the best support right now, I would say. You play Heal, Tempest, you typically run River's Relic, but you can also go for Trooper Relic, whatever you like, both of them are fine. Just defensive setup, full healing, Staff, Transference, Cleansing, or Energy, and then Earth, Water, Tempest, of course. You can swap some Tempest straight around. You could go for Invigorating Torrents and let in Stamina for some just nice Endurance regeneration. Then you typically would also drop the Lightning Flash and go for one more Shout. This is the more flexible setup here and works better in ranked, I would say, but still, this is typical Healing Tempest, very, very strong. Now I want to go do some honorable mention. First honorable mention would be Condi Spectre. Yes, Condi Spectre in my opinion is still quite good, especially in ranked, but of course in competitive team play they also had it sometimes in there. You would just play the classic build, Blightbringer Relic or Demon Queen Relic, and just the general Sword Dagger Scepter Pistol setup, and the classic traits of Deadly Arts, Trickery, and Spectre. Nothing too crazy. I have a build guide about that one, of course, as well. And that goes for almost all the builds that I just showed as well. So be sure to check out the links in the description if you want to know more about the specific builds. Second honorable mention would be Support Spellbreaker. Yes, Support Spellbreaker is surprisingly good because it's more mobile than Tempest. The healing output is also quite good. It doesn't have as much CC and stuff and setup like the Tempest, but it is also quite flexible what it wants to do. You can run Rupert Relic, Guardian, Avatar. There are some switches what you can do here. Sword, Warhorn is the setup to move faster and support your allies very well. Tactics, Discipline, of course. In Discipline, you could go for more healing focus with those two traits, but it's obviously not necessary. This is the general setup that you want to go for. You could go for Guard Counter as well. Those would be also fine. So keep that in mind. But this is just the general setup. Of course, 2 banners, and that's it. Then top 2 build. So in my opinion, one of the most played builds, and of course also in every single team that was like very high rated at the end of the monthly. So of course both teams in the final had at least one of those. Spear Mirage with, of course, Berserker, Fireworks, Infiltration, Ruin. Just, I have a build guide about this. Hard to play build, very bursty, very strong if you can perform on it, and just very just crazy good damage, especially if you have a support. And that's what you need to break actually through the top 1 build that we will get to in a second. Illusions, Dueling, Mirage, very nice setup. You can also play Domination if you wanted to. This one is a little bit more burst focused, whereas the Domination one has some crazy good DPS as well, and also boon removal. So depends a bit on your setup. Very strong build, very mobile, but quite squishy. And like I said, the top 1 build, 2 per team, sometimes 3 even on an AI hurt in each team. Bunker Scourge. Yes, this is the crazy defensive Bunker Scourge, and that's why you had to play at least 1 Mirage to actually break through those really annoying tanky builds. Yes, you play this build with Dagger, Warhorn and Staff, something like that. You play with Sage or even Avatar, whatever you like. You don't deal that much damage anyway. You run Relic of Geyser or whatever relic you think is fitting for this build. You can also go Naos because you have a lot of Condi cleanses. Guardian, then Sigil Energy, Transference even, and Cleansing could also be on there. Doesn't really matter too much. The traits are the important part. Blood Magic, Soul Reaping, and Scourge. Eternal Life for some Life Force and Protection, and just a lot of annoying stuff. Unblockable Marks, Life Force Generation, Transfusion trait, of course. Vampiric Presence for lifesteal, just really annoying. A lot of barrier, a lot of vigor, and just a lot of Condi cleanses with all the barrier you get. You could go for Fear of Death for get some more fear duration and some life force generation because you have actually quite a lot of fear effects, or you can go for more vitality or healing increase. Depends a bit on your setup, but you can see this is really annoying. A lot of AoE on point, a lot of just cleanses, barrier, really annoying bunker build that can also actually support its allies quite well. So overall, very well rounded, especially in a competitive 5 versus 5, just really strong build. Definitely deserves a nerf very soon, we will see that. But this is the general summary. I hope you enjoyed this quick guide and concise summary of the top 5 builds. Of course, other builds played. This is just what I saw was the typical best builds that the best teams played and had in the matches. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks again to all my supporters, and I hope to see you all in the next video.